Welcome to OJAS OASIS. This is a place where you will learn how to optimize your body, mind, and spirit in ways you have longed for a long time, perhaps your entire life. Our mission is to help you cultivate, nourish, and protect your OJAS, your immunity, and inner peace.
No, this is like raw me in the early morning. So let me introduce you first, France. Okay. Welcome. Such a pleasure to have you on, and thank you for accepting the invitation to join us.
Thank you, Sasha. It's amazing to be here. I'm excited for our chat.
Yay. Okay. So shall we pick up before we go into your background? Would you like to share a bit about your approach to creating beauty? Because you create so much beauty, you create so many beautiful physical spaces, and also the content that you create is so beautiful as well.
I think in the work I do, so I'm the founder of YOOM, which is an interior design studio and a weekly newsletter that helps women design their home for well-being. I got into this line of work through blending my university training in actual product design from Rhode Island School of Design with more of a holistic perspective on well-being that I was blessed to receive when I did my yoga teacher training and Ayurveda studies in India. So today I draw from both wisdoms and from the wisdom of those two disciplines, one that's focused on inner harmony and the other that's focused on outer harmony. And bringing these two together actually helps to design daily surroundings that effortlessly, promote wellness and help you achieve your wellness goals. Because when we talk about beauty and interior design, we build Pinterest boards and just pick the things that attract our eyes, or the things that we've seen on our favorite bloggers, Instagram account, or things that we've seen in cool hotels. And so we're very influenced by trends and visual beauty. But I think until now, the interior design world has been a bit superfluous, staying at the beauty level, so to speak. And there's so much more that we could tap into from our living spaces. When you think about it, we spend 90% of our days indoors, yet most of us don't design our living spaces in support of our wellness goals. We follow those design trends. We fill our spaces with whatever we can find that's affordable, with too little attention on how each of these choices, just as much as our individual food choices, have impact on our overall health and well-being. So, choosing a couch of a particular color will impact how you interact with your family members. And it could sound like woo-woo or like way too subtle to make a difference, but it's not. Like, we are, from an evolutionary point of view, we have evolved constantly. Our brain is constantly scanning our environment to make sure we're safe and comfortable. And so we do that still in our living spaces. And that's why we don't feel like we're really comfortable in, horrible gray cubicle offices or airport corridors or, hospital lobbies, etc. They weren't designed with our well-being in mind. And in our homes and in our living spaces, we can actually be more intentional about how we use beauty and how we bring beauty in according to the benefits that we want. So, how do we build a beautiful bedroom in order to have deeper sleep or connect more intimately with our partner? How do we design a beautiful kitchen that helps to promote better digestion, that helps us not overeat at night when we're tired and we use dinner as a reward? How do we design our living spaces so that we connect more as a family and stop spending all of our time on our phones, etc.? Like, our living spaces are a source of well-being, just like food is, just like herbs are, just like abhyanga is, which is today for most of us completely underutilized. And so through the work I do, I help with my one-on-one clients, my Instagram tutorials, or my weekly newsletter. I basically help you turn your living space into an active tool for well-being. And I'm sure, I'll get to explain how your living space can be a tool for well-being in our chat together here. But that's basically the gist.
I am so into what you do, to the point where
I can tell
it
from the
reminds me.
backdrop here. It's very
Right?
well designed and brings me at
Oh,
peace. It creates a comforting environment. so that people feel at ease in sharing and while they're being interviewed on the podcast. And that's mainly through, she has a cream colored background, which, cream is somewhat of an earthy color, and earthy colors root us back into nature and they ground us. And then she's got hanging plants, real plants that connect us back to nature as well. And that's a stress reliever too.
Thank you so much for noticing the details, because
and you're able
all that
to
it,
put words against what you notice. I think everyone is impacted by it subconsciously in the background. They just don't necessarily realize it. When you meet someone and you're like, I'm not sure about his vibe or her vibe. Same with a space. Like people might not be able to put words against like why they're not totally feeling at ease or comfortable or energized, or they feel depressed in a space when, objectively it looks fine. Some people are more well versed in translating how they feel into words, and so it's a strength. It could be maybe annoying for friends or partners when you're choosing hotels or things like that, but it's a quality to have.
Thank you. And I pause a lot because of it, because I'm so awestricken by beauty around me in the world. It does take me longer to pass through perhaps like a museum or a garden, botanical gardens, or anywhere I go. I do sometimes fixate on one flower, and I can't walk away from it.
Yeah.
So
until you've had your
it's
dose or
just,
something.
yes, it's just, it does require a certain level of appreciation. And that's that Venus. And I know it's like, I have an exalted Venus. But you mentioned, I don't know why I'm so into astrology when we're supposed to be talking about interior design.
That's
I'm going to
cool.
shift away from
Any
astrology,
topic
even though all of
is welcome here.
they all work together. I
Yeah.
mean, the Vedic system, as you know, because you've studied Ayurveda in India, it's a whole system. And I was going to mention, you spark this reminder in this passion, the reminder of the passion that I have for Vastu Shastra, because Vastu Shastra is all about utility, beauty, healing, merging, all of these things, creating. And by the way, it has more to do with Ayurveda than people might assume, because Ayurveda is all about creating an environment inside of your body and around your body that allows for harmony and peace and health, and protects you from dis-ease.
Yeah. And Vastu is, if for people who know Feng Shui, it's basically the Indian version of Feng Shui. If we oversimplify it, but it comes from the same Vedic text as Ayurveda, Jyotish, which is Indian astrology, and Vastu, which is Indian space arrangement. So yeah, they're definitely intrinsically linked. I'm not an expert in it, but with my interior design background and my yoga and Ayurveda background, I basically merged the two to get to a similar field of work. But I call it holistic interior design, and when people often ask me like, what's the difference between holistic interior design and interior design, like traditional just interior design that we all know. And I often say that, traditional interior design usually prioritizes aesthetics that we were talking about earlier and functionality of a space. But holistic interior design usually places a stronger emphasis on the well-being of the person that's living in the space. So it's focusing on figuring out how each design choice, whether it's the layout, the colors you bring into a room, the textures, the lighting, the shape of the furniture, the patterns you bring in, how do all of these impact your physical, your mental, and your emotional well-being? And like a good example is, a traditional interior designer might suggest that you build a bookcase as a bed headboard in your bedroom. Those like bookshelves that encase the bed. It's functional. It's very aesthetically pleasing of a design feature. But from a holistic point of view, so many books around your head when you sleep adds heaviness and stress, and that'll impact your ability to get deep sleep. And so instead, we would suggest to store a smaller selection of books on a bookshelf at the foot of your bed on the opposite wall for more of a sense of stability and support. So it's not like all these words and texts and the labor that went into all these books, and the physical heaviness isn't around your head while you sleep. So there's like tons of like decisions that happen in holistic interior design based on the impact on the person's well-being versus just the aesthetic result.
That's amazing. You already answered one of my questions without me having to officially ask it, which was, how do you define holistic interior design? How is it different from traditional interior design? You just nailed that one.
I'm reading. We're connecting well then.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. I always start usually with interviews. So because you and I have just like this is like one of the like easiest conversations I would have with a human being, because I think we think very similarly, and we probably operate like our lives really similarly with a lot of the same intentions and priorities, which is so great. And we'd get along really well as friends. So, but I usually start with getting to know the background and the story of how someone got into this field, because it is definitely well, first of all, it's from another Ayurveda, Vastu, or Feng Shui, or holistic philosophy is not something that is found here in our culture. So we have to seek that. I'm wondering how your journey began with that, discovering holistic design. I know you went to RISD. You mentioned you studied design at RISD, which is incredible. It's like the best conservatory design school probably in the country. So how did you discover, or I should say, when did you become passionate about bridging health with design?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something that, intrinsically every designer knows that, and that's why they take every choice so intentionally, because they know the impact that a space can have on someone. I basically have helped people decode, how to use design for particular benefits. So you overeat and you'd like to shed some extra weight in your kitchen. Therefore, there's specific things you can do to your kitchen when it comes to designing it. Doesn't mean you have to renovate the whole kitchen. It just means that maybe you can eat from light blue plates. Why? Because blue is seen by the brain as an appetite suppressant. Because when you think about it in nature, except for blueberries, there's no food that is naturally blue. So when the brain sees blue, it like suppresses appetite. Obviously, all of these are subtle forces, but they're still forces. Organizing decluttering your countertop. We tend to have tons of crap on our countertops. Decluttering our kitchen, organizing our pantries so that the healthiest food is at the forefront and on center shelves, and we hide the unhealthy alternatives in opaque containers at the back of our pantries or at the bottom shelves of our fridge. All of these, again, are subtle changes, but life is made of subtleties. So when you open your fridge and you see apples or oranges first, or kale or whatever, it doesn't have to be that overly healthy either. When you see meat or fresh produce or even grains first, you will grab that first rather than cheese, crackers, or packaged foods. And I forget why I went into this, but your initial question of, how did I merge the two together? I went to traditional design school, and I learned, and then I worked in design agencies, learning that deliberate choices in colors, shapes, materials, textures, layouts, all of that had the ability to not only shape the physical environment that we were in, but also to nurture our mind, body, and heart. And so I realized that through years of working in design agencies. But then it was kind of in the back of my mind. And then because of digestive issues and anxiety issues and Vata dominance, I basically got into yoga and Ayurveda and went traditionally in that route. Studied yoga in an ashram in India, did 2 years of training for becoming an Ayurvedic practitioner. And so I basically studied those two fields in parallel. And it basically ended up connecting 2 years ago when I realized that I was in my personal life making these choices, and blending the principles of Ayurveda with just design sound choices. So I was personalizing my bedroom based on my constitution. So I'm, Vata air person who tends to run anxious and restless. I had like tons of digestive issues and didn't sleep properly. And so I ended up redesigning my bedroom. All this obviously is in addition to lifestyle practices and diet changes. I'm not saying that, by redesigning your bedroom, you're going to change everything about your life, but our physical environment have a very strong impact. I would say equal as to the food you put into your body and your lifestyle practices. And so I basically started using, my bedroom, I redesigned it to use earthy colors, wood materials, heavy furniture legs, all of that to anchor me down, rugs that would soothe my nervous system. And the whole design was designed to warm me up and ground me as a person. In terms of layout, it was more of an intimate setting arrangement that created more of like a grounding and secure environment for someone who runs a bit anxious. If I were like a dominant pitta, I would have designed my bedroom completely different. Pitta people tend to run, fire people tend to run a little bit hot, competitive, and angry. And so if I were a Pitta person, I would have focused on creating more of a soothing and cooling bedroom. So making sure that the colors I used were cooling, like blues, greens, grays, more of like a minimalistic layout that's like completely clutter free, maybe with like some water features, whether it's pictures or actual fountains, etc. So I naturally started to bring in the principles of Ayurveda in order to customize my space. And so that's when I realized that the two were actually could feed off of each other and create 1 + 1 = 3. And so I started a practice where now I do that for one-on-one clients, and I share that on Instagram.
That was another incredible answer, because you also covered how Ayurvedic philosophy influences your approach to design. You mentioned the Vata, some really nice, simple, but again, what's really cool about Ayurveda is how simple yet profound.
Yeah.
And simple yet complex it is. Like you would think, oh, something as small as like the legs of a table, the thickness or the heaviness of a piece, or these small, it might seem small, or like the color green. There's so many different greens. There's the obviously very saturated or earthy, or what's the other one? Oh, like a pastel.
Yeah.
So there's quite a spectrum, and they all have completely different. And then there's the shades of green, but like the tone, there's and all. I mean, color.
Yeah.
I think it's been studied for long enough that color has a profound impact on
Definitely.
us.
Yeah.
There, so that's scientifically very, very well known, and widespread knowledge. But in the Ayurvedic sense, it's taking it to the next level, because it's customizing it based on your nature and the Pancha Mahabhutas,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
which aka the 5 elements, and which each color represents one of the 5 elements,
Yes.
and those elements,
Yeah.
um
Yeah, I think it's colors, we could do a whole podcast on colors. Colors are fascinating. And we tend to live in a world that's scared of using colors, at least in interior design. Now there's a huge, we're stepping into more of a maximalist trend where people are less shy about color. But until now, you looked at Pinterest and it was all beige and white and natural materials, which is beautiful. There's nothing wrong with it. But I think colors have been underutilized. At least the rest of the colors of the spectrum have been underutilized until now. And we can be strategic about how we use colors for specific functions in rooms. Like colors, chromotherapy and color therapy have been scientifically proven to affect mood, energy levels, overall well-being. Colors either increase your heart rate and adrenaline levels, like warm colors like red, orange, yellows, etc., or they actually lower your heart rate and your blood pressure, which helps to reduce stress and anxiety, like cool colors, blues, greens, purples. So it's not just like, cool, like I like pink because it calms me. No, it's actually like it triggers different things in your brain, and your body physiologically responds to the color that you see, unless obviously you're colorblind. But for other like people who don't have an impairment, it impacts on a physiological level and mental and emotional level greatly. And we could use that to our advantage depending on what you need them to do for you. So in a bedroom, I would obviously never use, bright reds or, bright oranges. You can use pops, but if you want to create a bedroom that is suitable for unwinding and resting, you're probably going to want to avoid those more stimulating colors that increase your heart rate and adrenaline levels, right? Which make you feel more alert and active. Maybe you use these colors in social spaces like living rooms or even home gyms or things like that. Yeah, I think colors are impressive and a very easy tool in interior design to use. You can use neutral colors as kind of your base, and then have pops of colors depending on what benefit you want from them in different rooms.
I was going to say, you mentioned some tips for the vata or the pitta bedroom. How about for kapha? Because kaphas are known for their deep sleep. One of the things that's so great about them is they're very grounded individuals, which means they can sleep very easily, but sometimes I think it's difficult for them to get going in the morning, which is why we always actually say like they should wake up an hour before they plan to get out of bed, because it takes them that hour to really actually start to like mobilize themselves. They'll like toss and turn and kind of like slow. It's just like more of a slow.
Yeah, they tend to oversleep as well, and maybe like feel sluggish too. Not necessarily only in the morning, but in that case, I would design a bedroom with plenty of light, of natural light. I would make sure that the curtains aren't like completely blackout, or if they are blackout, maybe there's a remote control right off, in your bed, so you don't have to get up, and it like helps to energize a little bit. I would use bright and stimulating pops of colors. So not necessarily like bright red, but maybe you go in terracottas or like pops of yellows or pops of greens and pinks, and or purple has like this good balance between blue and red, so cooling and warming. So it could be stimulating it could be stimulating, but also kind of soothing. Anything that, elements that like incorporate or encourage activity or movement would be something that I would want from a kapha too, that I'd put into a kapha bedroom. So for like, textures have, just like colors, textures can influence us. Matte textures are grounding. Shiny and glossy textures like glossy ceramic or silver. There's a huge trend now with silver lamps and silver details. All of those can actually be stimulating because they reflect light. So in a kapha bedroom, I would put less grounding textures and more energizing textures. So, details like that could be easily integrated into your design.
Can you imagine? I mean, that's incredible information. Thank you so much. Can you imagine going to a doctor, which like I will soon be after I complete my dissertation and a couple more outstanding things I have to do,
which is amazing.
like take the exam. But imagine going to a doctor and you have anxiety and you have insomnia, and let's just hypothetical, right? Like a couple other things, like maybe some skin issues or digestive issues, and your doctor tells you, well, what are the colors in your room when you're sleeping? And like what plates, what color are the plates that you're eating off of? And what are the textures in your bedroom?
One day. They already recommend meditation. It took only, like a lot of years, but
yes. But I do feel that progress is happening at such a rapid rate now. Everything moves so much faster, which is it's sometimes it's moving so quickly. Obviously, there's a vata component to that. Every technology has a huge um, influence on the movement of things, but the movement in terms of the health space, I'm happy it's moving as fast as it is,
Yeah.
because we have to remedy the lifestyle based disorders that are happening as a result of that fast paced lifestyle,
Yeah.
and the expectations that are placed on us to keep up with the technology. So, at least in the healthcare space and in the healing fields and in the, all these things, like, Ayurveda works with the five senses, and healing is a five sensory journey. And
Yeah.
diet, as we talk about all the time on the podcast, but this is something not new to Ayurveda. This is the core of Ayurveda, is that there's nothing which is not medicine. And we talk about color, chromotherapy. That is actually in the texts. Chromotherapy.
Yeah.
That is not a new age trendy idea. That's been around for thousands of years. We are so affected by the colors and the textures and the environment in which we make, and and why not intentionally create it if we know that it can help us and serve us in so many ways in our space. And like you said, spending 90% of your time indoors.
Yeah. Which is
Wow,
crazy. I mean, just like we've
that's
learned
crazy.
not how to not compartmentalize our body from our mind or our mind from our body, we've understood now that the two affect each other back and forth. We are also now understanding that our health and well-being comes from a holistic view of all aspects of our lives: food, diet, content we consume on Netflix, the relationships we have, etc., and our finances or whatever. And in addition is our homes and our interiors, and we're little by little making headway into understanding that, but it's obvious for some and not for others. But when you help someone integrate these principles into their homes, the changes are just amazing. I've had
Can I ask?
I've had
Oh, yeah.
yeah a clients having trouble conceiving for years. They were living in like an unfinished bedroom because they thought that once they were pregnant they would move out, and that was kind of a vicious circle. They weren't pregnant, so they weren't moving out, so they weren't designing their bedroom and so forth. And then when we actually finally designed their bedroom and made it into what they wanted the bedroom to be, a few months later they were able to conceive. So it's it doesn't happen at with every client, with everyone, but that's just to show how impactful a living space could be, because again, we're constantly scanning as an evolutionary behavior to make sure we're safe and comfortable, so we are impacted whether we know it or not.
Root chakra.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that will feel different for everybody, what makes you feel safe.
Yeah.
So even drawing attention to that question for each individual listening, what makes you feel safe?
Yeah.
And I mean, so many people are living with dysregulated nervous systems, so they actually might struggle with answering that. So that might take them some time. It might be a foreign concept to them.
Yeah, and
So
it
that
takes
journey.
time,
Mhm.
things as well, I'm sure. I think there are, there's some, obviously with everything that we've talked about, green can help you focus. And so bringing green into a home office as a color is great. But if you hate green, then don't include green into your home office just because, for the majority of people, it's grounding. So there's always a level of individualization for sure, similar to what makes you feel safe. Having said that, there are some core, like for example, forms and shapes that convey safety, that trigger something in your brain that relaxes your nervous system. And those shapes are round, curved shapes. When they redesigned the Columbine High School after the shooting, they redesigned it so that it has awnings that are just huge waves. and there's a lot of curves in the design of the school. All of those were to promote a sense of safety for the kids coming back after the shooting. We see sharp objects and edges as a sense of danger, and it's a bit aggressive, and it feels unsafe. It feels like it brings us, our brain, into alert mode, and we see curved angles, wavy shapes as comforting and relaxing. So just that, if you want to create more of a safe environment, because you feel, you've got a new job, you moved into a new city, there's a lot of uncertain areas in your life, well, including rounded corners, rounded sofas, rounded tables, rather than like geometric, hard-edged furniture, will help.
That is so lovely to hear that they did that for the Columbine School. I'm so happy that they put that amount of care
Yeah, it's amazing.
into healing the
Yeah.
community and the kids that go to that school. And just that, I mean, you say that the name of the school, and already I'm flooded with just so much
Yeah.
feeling because of that. I remember when that happened, and isn't
Yeah.
it incredible how just one word just takes you back to that,
Yeah.
that time and how that affected the country. So that makes me happy that they're doing everything that they can to,
Yeah, it's
you know,
amazing. Those architects did a really good thing here.
and see architects as healers, designers as
Yeah.
healers. Like, you don't necessarily have to be a doctor to be a healer. There's so many other ways to approach the healing arts. I feel like you're a healing artist, the way that you approach creating healing space. And if you think about it, like the name of my practice, and I do want to talk about YOOM, your practice, and how you named everything about it. But OJAS OASIS, the meaning, so it is a space. If it's an oasis, it's a space. Um, a
Mm-hmm.
space that increases your OJAS, or your immunity and vitality.
Just,
So you and I are just like two peas in a pod over here. Let's talk about YOOM and your business, but I also feel like it's a practice because you're taking people that are having actual clinical things going on, like whether it be infertility or anxiety. Like, you're really taking people that have existing disease, and you're curating your treatment plan of the space around that. So how did you come up with the name YOOM? And I also checked out your website, and I saw how you very cleverly uh, created your menu with things like just the word gut or gut health, and then
mm-hmm.
mood and sex, like instead of it being like living room, bathroom,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
kitchen.
Yeah,
I
because
love it.
interior design is a tool. It's just another tool, like herbs are, like lifestyle practices are, like, tons of other healing, sound baths, etc. It's just another tool for getting you to enhance your well-being. So in that perspective, then I've organized my content so that you navigate based on the benefit that you're looking for versus the room that you're looking to decorate. Having said that, my one-on-one work with people that I've helped design spaces for typically starts with, I don't feel great in a room, help me redesign it, or I just moved, help me design the whole thing from a holistic perspective based on my goals, etc. And then I walk them through a process where we sit down and I hear about their wellness goals, and then we design according to that. Because there's still a little bit of a disconnect between, can my space really make me feel that better, and can it help me heal something that I currently have? They typically don't call me saying, "Oh, we're infertile. Can you help us redesign your bedroom?"
Right,
But
right.
it's like an aftermath, which I've seen repetitively across my clients, which is amazing, and just
Wow.
reinforces that physical spaces do have a huge impact on our well-being. And so the name YOOM came from merging. Initially, it came from merging two words, yum and good. And it has that word om in the middle. But the reason why is that I wanted a short word, and I initially started as a food business where I was selling a kitchery kit. So it's as the journey of entrepreneurship. You start with something and then you evolve in something completely different. You pivot the business, and and you're happy for it and for everything that you've learned along the way.
I love it. I love everything you just first of
Yeah,
all, wait, Kitchery Kit, that is so cool. And then so I'll tell you, when I hear when I see the word YOOM, I think
yeah.
womb. And I
Oh,
also think your room.
that's interesting.
Yeah, like there's a lot of which all make me feel really cozy. They give me a
Yeah,
cozy, like, okay, my space. Like this is my and to feel like you're inside of a womb is the quintessential feeling of safety. It
that's
doesn't get
really
more
nice. I wrote
cozy
that
than that.
down.
Yeah. You could
Exactly. It doesn't get, yeah, exactly.
take
It
it.
doesn't
Have
get
it.
more nurturing and supportive as that.
Yes. Yes. I wanted to ask you an off the cuff question because this week um, I had a patient and they were describing a very a mood. Well, for the over 3 months, she's been dealing with very acute depression,
Okay.
and she has a beautiful. I've been to her space. I've been to her home. It's actually really beautiful. You walk in and you feel like you're in a zen. But I will tell you, France, that her home has very little color in it. It's very
Hmm.
neutral. It's like very high end. Like it's obviously she worked with an interior designer. You know, there's beautiful sculpture and water elements and things that are calming, but I think it might be too tamasic, too calming to the point
Yeah.
where um yeah, like a lot of grays. And well, now
Yeah.
that I'm saying it out loud, it makes sense. But how would you like splash some happiness into her like space to help her out of that?
And it has a lot of natural light or no?
Lots of natural light.
Okay. So she has like the basis, so to speak. Um, yeah, I think the number one, or I would say, is also like infuse personal touches. I think when the spaces are designed like a Pinterest board or by a professional, they tend to sometimes lack personality, and they lack any sort of like connection with the space, that like kind of where you end up being dissociated from the space you're in because you're not seeing yourself in the color choices or the sculptures or the decor pieces, etc. So it looks super coherent and beautiful, but it doesn't look personal, or it doesn't feel personal. So the first thing I would say is like try to infuse more personality in there, whether they're mementos from travels, pictures of you, of that person with a partner or family members on a specific trip that really triggers great memories every time she walks in front of it. Um, Artwork that's personally meaningful. So not like beautiful, you know, beach backgrounds, which are beautiful to have, photos are beautiful to have, but they're, the artwork should relate to your life goals or your aspirations, whether it's, a beautiful country house that one day you want to buy, or the type of business partners that you want to have, or I mean, if it's work related, you can have that in your home office. But there's a lot of more, visual reminders that we can bring into our space to trigger us when we walk in front of a wall with a picture of that dream house. It gives me an objective for life. It reminds me of the broader goal. It takes me out of my current like misery and like wallowing. So that's one. And then I think number two is, in that case, I would maybe, she has a beautifully designed space. I would kind of go and almost design a secret room and kind of say, okay, if in my room, in my house, I could dedicate, and whether you do it or not doesn't matter, just the act of designing it will help to like bring in life. If I were to take one of the rooms in my house and make that the secret room that no one can ever step into, only me, how would I design it? Like, does it have unicorns? Does it have polka dots on the wall? Does it have like weird things hanging from the ceiling? It doesn't matter. How would you design your secret room? And like, what would, like, every packet with everything that would bring you joy, whether it's your designer said it looked bad, or you've never seen it on Pinterest, or you think that it would reflect that you have bad taste. I don't care. Like just the act of of building a Pinterest board of all the stuff that would bring you joy in your secret bed, in your secret room. What would you do in the room? How would you spend your time? What would it feel like, smell like, feel like? Is it full of carpet, of plush carpet? Is it, so I think loosening it up a little bit and loosening the space might help to bring it a little bit of fresh air and less rigidity that tends to weigh you down and make you feel depressed.
I love it. I love it.
Obviously,
I
all of this
love
is
it.
like a one-on-one thing. I've
Yes.
never talked to that person, but that's just, based on what you're telling me, those are just a few things I could say now off the cuff.
Those are so creative and fun. I think that word fun came to mind when you were talking about polka dots and unicorns. It's
Yeah,
and design doesn't have to be so serious. It doesn't have to be like you said, like out of an architectural digest magazine.
exactly.
We go for what we think looks good, um, but it's important to feel your way into your space, what feels good.
Yeah,
And
and the
that's really
quirks, just
embodied.
like in people, the quirks,
Yes.
just like in people, are what makes the person interesting. So, you can have a beautifully designed space and then have a vase that like seems off, but you love it and it doesn't go with the rest of the space, but it doesn't matter. I think like
Yes.
adding these quirks makes it yours. It makes it where you have a sense of ownership. You feel like you're progressing towards something, and all of that helps with feelings of depression.
Yes. From yeah. I I was gonna say some like cheeky joke about it's your YOOM or it's your room or it's a YOOM. It doesn't have to
It's you.
be yeah, like um yeah,
It's
I think
you.
that's
It's yeah.
it's you. It's you.
We should feel like our spaces reflect who we are. And yeah,
And then that always begs the question, who are you?
yeah,
Right?
exactly. And
Starting there.
that's yeah,
Let's start with who are you? What are you
yeah.
what's important to you? Is health hopefully health is important to you, right? Especially if some stuff is going on. So I love how strategic, practical, and multi-layered your approach is. Your work is so important. It is so smart. And I would hire you in a
Thank you.
freaking heartbeat to design every like square inch. Well, to help me figure out how to do everything. Cause I think, sure, you can go and you can study, or you can work with people who have gone and studied, and you can have a team, you can have partners on these projects, because I think something as um, fun as interior design, people underestimate the work because they think, oh, it's fun, it's playful to design and be creative, but it's wait a minute, it's also quite a bit of work. It can be
Yeah, for
both.
sure. I
Like it's
mean, working within a budget, finding the right pieces, making it all look together. I mean, that's why there's full-time interior designers. It's a full-time job.
yes.
But it doesn't mean that you also, I work at different levels with my clients. I do complete, I just moved into a home and I need everything projects to, I need to do something with my bedroom, or we never spend time in the living room. We spend all our time in our den. Like, what's wrong with the living room? Can you help us like figure out, we don't want to change anything. We want to just relay out the space. And so, I do a lot of those as well. Like with the current furniture, how do we make it so that it feels more of a like sociable space where you can connect with family, etc. So there's, multiple levels of, most of the time people feel like when they work with a designer, it's going to be super costly. It's going to take time. They're going to have to regut the whole house. No,
Yeah.
there's like a lot of things you can do with just even like changing the focal point of a room, moving furniture around, maybe buying a new end table versus the one you have, or adding lights or adding mirrors in a dark corner that will reflect and bring light into that corner, adding live plants. Like there's a lot of things you can do that are not costly, whether you own or rent. All of it is doable.
Um, Not to end it on sort of like a challenging, but like sometimes people live in spaces where they are kind of constrained according to how the space was built. Like there's not much you can do when, like, actually, the room I'm in is a great example. The door is to my left which I can't see the
Okay.
door, which I know in feng shui kind of gives you the sense of, oh, who's coming? I can't, right
Yeah.
to my left, the door. I mean,
You're
I know
in
no
the
one's coming because I'm in my home.
direction.
Yeah, but it's still, I'm sure, on some level, a little bit off, in terms of like
Unsettling.
unsettling. But the windows, like the windows are in front of me, and that's
It's great.
nice.
Yeah,
Which, because
it's
my
great.
desk is here, so I work in here. So so there's a window to my right, and then a window right in front of me. But then the only so this was like really the only place I could have put like a clean background. It's kind of a limited room. So how would you say, is it sometimes you just got to do the best with what you got and
Yeah. And we all
don't
have
sweat it if it's not
limitations.
perfect? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we all have limitations in the space that we live in. And I mean, the it's just very much like in Ayurveda, when you balance your diet based on your constitution or how you feel. So in the fall, you're constipated, you feel dry, your skin is dry, etc. You're going to balance your diet with a lot of healthy fats, ghee, hydrating vegetables, etc. We do the same in interior design, where you compensate for the architectural constraints of a room. So, for example, it's recommended to have your bed in your bedroom central with two sets of matching bedside tables on either side, so that you create symmetry. Symmetry can help to create balance in the couple, where both parties seem like they're being heard and they feel supported, etc. Let's say you're in a small bedroom, which I live in New York
Yes.
City, and I have a
Yep.
lot of those, and I'm helping a client in Montreal right now with a very tiny bedroom. So we have to stick the bed against the wall, so only one partner can. Anyways, so it's not
Right.
symmetrical. But
Mm.
there's a way to create symmetry other ways. Okay, so you can't create symmetry with a two bedside table. You'll only have one bedside table. But on the side of the wall, maybe you use color, a pop of color, or an artwork that will add that symmetry. So, for example, if the bedside table is dark wood, maybe I'll put a big dark wood frame on the left, so that like visually it starts to create symmetry. So yes, it's not perfect symmetry, but it is visual symmetry that will still give you that feeling of feeling centered, and where both parties feel like they have their own sides, and they feel the
Balanced.
relationship feels balanced.
Mm.
um, there's you have uneven walls with like different heights
Mhm.
in an apartment, or pipes coming out, and there's brick, there's wall, there are red pipes. Using a unified color palette, where you paint everything one color, so that at least the eye will just glance through this big one block, as opposed to be cut throughout the different levels. So that's just another trick as well, to level out varying ceilings, for example.
Mhm. Mhm.
um, there's there's a detail that you find unappealing in a room. Well, then shift the focus point on the other side by creating a focal point that draws people's attention away from the imbalanced area, whether it's like a striking piece of artwork, a fireplace, a large plant, anything that will like strategically move the eye out. There's tons of stuff to do, like if the space has like tons of harsh line, then you bring in softness. In my apartment in New York, the living room space is very narrow. And so what I did, in order to give impression that it's wider, I had mirrors cut in rounded, in arched ways that look like archway doors. And I've installed them so that they hit the floor. So when you come in, you actually feel like there's another room. You feel like there are like three archway doors to another room. And that like really broadens the perspective. My neighbors are always like, "Did you join two apartments?" I'm like, "No." It's just, so there's tons of things to do, and design is a tool to use to correct imbalances, just like we use food and herbs and lifestyle practices to correct our physiological and mental imbalances. Design does the same thing. You do that to your space, and then it boomerangs back onto you, making you feel better. You feel, with the example of the mirrors, I feel like I can breathe. It's less claustrophobic. It's more, I feel I'm more expanded. There's like greater expansion just with the mirror trick. So there's tons of things to do. And I think the other thing I'll finish on is that, we spend a lot of time apologizing for how our home looks when guest comes. Oh, it's too messy, or we wish it looked like the cover of Architectural Digest, but focusing on all of those negatives is actually making us sick, depressed, anxious, and is actually preventing us from turning our home into a tool for well-being. And so I think almost being grateful for the imperfections will help us switch around challenges into opportunities for creativity and for creating, that example of a focal point. I hate this design or this detail. There's like a huge AC in the middle of the living room. Don't ask me how architects come up with that, but a huge grid, AC grid. And so therefore I'm going to have to focus and be creative on the other wall. And that pushes me to look for an interesting piece of artwork that actually every day energizes me. So it's just like in entrepreneurship or in life, limitations actually help to innovate or help to come up with beneficial solutions sometimes. So, glass half full type of thing, but design, colors, textures, shapes can always be used as a counterbalancing tool for something that's not optimal. Because on that note, I have to go visit an apartment because I'm living into a rented, furnished, or short-term furnished apartments right now. I'm in Paris right now, and
oh my God, France! Of course you are.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
Sure that has something to do with it.
I'm in between New York and Paris, and I work digitally, but I'm in a space that's very neutral colors, and there's beige and browns and whites, and
that doesn't work for your Vata. That won't work.
It's great, but it's universally pleasing, and I need color. So I'm going to visit an apartment with color.
Yes.
I'm very excited.
You are just amazing. France, this has been so enjoyable to talk with you, to learn from you.
You too, Sasha.
Yeah, you make it easy. You make it easy to learn, and you're very inspiring.
Thank you for having me, and it's thanks to you too. It's a back and forth. So if the conversation went well, is that you're a good interviewer and you make people feel comfortable, and your background contributes to that too. So
see? France, thank you for being here, and literally, I know you're in France. You're France, and you're in France.
Thank you for having me, Sasha. I know.
Have fun in Paris, and
thank you so much, and thank you for all of the work that you do. I am grateful for you having OJAS OASIS and for having me here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
you. Thank you for listening to OJAS OASIS with Sasha Bershadsky. To learn more about Ayurvedic healing, please visit ojasoasis.com. We'll see you next time, and until then, have your smile.